Prince Magnum. When are we going to see a walk around of Project Spirit again? Stick around, that's exactly what we're going to do. Hello again, and welcome to the Prince Magnum channel. I'm your host, Prince Magnum. Welcome to two sides of the same coin. My lovely wife is operating the camera because there's no way I'm going to be able to do this walk around and talk to you all and point out the various things that you need to know. This here, if you've not kept up with the channel, been living under a rock, this here is Project Spirit. Project Spirit is a 1975 Ford Maverick. Don't mistake her with the Mustang, even though she has a lot in common with the Mustang. She's a Maverick. She just looks like a throwback to the 60s. Project Spirit has done some awesome things in about a year. She's won 3 trophies just last year, 2016. She took a 3rd place, then she took a 2nd place, and then she took a 1st place. And basically 3 trophies in 6 car shows. Not half bad for a car that's still a work in progress. But let's get on with it. Let's get to, you know, what makes Spirit tick. Some of the neat features that you all don't know about, and some of the things I'd like to change. So let's go ahead and get her hood up. And right away you will notice that she's operating with her inline 250. Now this, for the most part, is a basic stock inline 250, inline 6-cylinder from the 1970s. These engines, they didn't have a whole lot of horsepower, but they had a tremendous amount of torque, which is why whenever you watch my closing segment, the video really doesn't know justice, because in that video she tried to pull the front wheels. These engines are better suited for trucks. But they put them in cars, and they were great for fuel economy. We'll get to that in a moment. Let's start off with the obvious stuff. One of the first things that we did, she used to have a snorkel right up here. We removed that and removed a lot of various tubing off of her air filter assembly. Cleaned it up, and the wife did some amazing artwork right here. Spirit's name right up here. This emblem is actually a variation of what was on our wedding cake when we got married. There's not too much in the way of air cleaner assemblies for open element for these for the 1-barrel carburetor from this time frame that'll actually give me good hood clearance. It's a little tight on the up and down, lots of room on the sides, but not a whole lot of room this way. And this is the time that we started seeing a lot of that stuff. Alright, let's go ahead and take off her air filter assembly here. And I actually have a video up basically showing you how I made this. Basically it's a wing nut and with a washer, and basically I soldered that on there because for whatever reason it kept losing this stud down inside the carburetor, caused all sorts of problems, so I got tired of that. There you have it, her original 1-barrel carburetor from technically 1974, and I'll show you all that in a minute. Alright, just very basic carburetor. Like a lot of them from this time frame, there's things that are not connected. As a matter of fact, she has an electronic assisted choke that's not even hooked up, and she still starts no matter the weather. You might have to work with her a little bit, but she does start pretty much every time. That's normal run-of-the-mill. Right over here on the side is where we adjust the fuel to air mixture. On the other side where the linkage connects in, that's where you adjust the idle. For those who've never seen this before, you're going to see something really awesome. See if I can get my wife to pan in. Right over in here on the carburetor, you'll actually see "Made in USA" stamped on it. So this was actually made, you know, this pretty much that's the norm for back then. Alright, she does have power steering. You can see the pump right there, the power steering pump. I've got a line that's got to be fixed because she likes to dump it out, so it might as well be manual steering, but for the most part it does still work. It does still work. Now, I will tell you all up front that Project Spirit, when we got her, basically some of the things that the engine was rebuilt. It is still the original engine, but it was rebuilt, and the person who had her last was doing a lot of things wrong, and we had to go through and clean a lot of that up. Just various things like that. The carburetor you actually see, though, for the first time ever, I'm going to actually just say it on the channel. This carburetor is not supposed to be on here, okay? Back in the 70s, when I said that we discovered fuel economy, basically the big four at that time, Mopar, GM, Ford, and AMC, American Motor Company, which was later bought out by the Mopar Corporation, would sneak out carburetors that were super fuel efficient. They came in 1-barrel, 2-barrel, and of course 4-barrel carburetors. If you knew what you were looking for, you could get these carburetors. They were fantastic on fuel, and if you can make your modifications around them, the economy was through the roof. This is one of the secrets to Project Spirit's amazing fuel economy. Now, by the late 80s, the government wanted these carburetors off the road. They would go around literally taking them from people, and basically they would say you had to buy a new carburetor, and of course the ones that they were buying were not as fuel efficient. So great job, U.S. government, ripping off the American public. And of course, right after that happened, we've seen fuel injection and the foreign market really open up. So any modifications you see at this point on Project Spirit are basically built around this setup right here, okay? Now, if I can get my lovely wife to scan the camera right down there, this is also one of the other many secrets that goes on with Project Spirit's performance and fuel economy. If you look right there, you'll actually see a custom Excel supercoil. It is chrome. Basically, what we have done, besides gap the plugs wider, we have added that coil, which now burns the fuel more efficiently, and since it burns it more efficiently, we get more power and we get overall better fuel economy. That's why she's able, on pretty much like a day like today, she would be able to get 64 miles to the gallon on the highway. That's one of the other things. She still has her original single exhaust, yes, but we've added a thrush turbo muffler. Now, for those of you kids that like to throw on the decan muffler, skip that. Spend about $10 cheaper and you'll actually get a better sound and better performance out of a thrush turbo. Just make sure that it fits your exhaust size. Car manufacturers are really, you know, they already figured that in for you. Just put the right size muffler on. Don't go bigger, don't go smaller. Stay with the size you're supposed to. All right, moving on. One of the things that also makes Project Spirit so awesome is the fact that she has a solid steel fan. This fan will never wear out, okay? Basically, she's always drawing air. That's why she always runs cool. So I can run her almost pretty much as hard as any other vehicle out there, and she'll go all day long. She don't even care. That's why we don't even have to have the fan shroud, because she's constantly drawing air. Fan shroud would help her do a little bit better, but it's not a necessity. All right. She does have an external voltage regulator. Later on, we actually see these basically moved inside the alternator, and it was one less part to worry about. But Ford didn't do that till later on. So in 1974-75, we still see this. Actually, we've seen these on Mavericks all the way up until 1977, and possibly even on vehicles even after that. So it did work, and it worked just fine. And these are very cheap to replace. Unfortunately, over time, the paint that I put on there has chipped, but that's just the way it is. You know, we'll have to clean that up and redo it, get ready for car show season again. No big deal. There you have all the details of her engine. Pretty much bone stock otherwise. Just a few minor upgrades that help with performance, help with fuel economy, help with her reliability. Now, one of the next videos that you'll actually see, we will be basically going ahead and doing a water pump, even though it's not necessary yet. But every once in a while, I'll see her weep a little bit of antifreeze, and it's best to go ahead and get that taken care of. Okay, Let's move on towards some other things that you don't see nowadays. You'll notice there is no brake booster back here. This is manual brakes. Now we are getting ready to change the master cylinder and just kind of halfway update her brake system. Honestly, you don't have to have power brakes. It's not a necessity. All the brake booster does is just make it easier to to push down the pedal and lock up your brakes. It's really not a necessity. A lot of people in the performance world will take the brake booster off and go back to manual brakes. She is still rolling on her original front drum brakes. We are working up to doing a complete front disc brake conversion, but we will stay with her manual brakes. And they did do that a lot with the Mavericks. Okay, now for the running gag. I know a lot of you have been asking about it. What's the running gag you keep talking about on Project Spirit? When we got Project Spirit, one of the first things that every shop I took her to said that her suspension was shot. It was going to cost thousands of dollars to get it right. All right, here's the running gag. Where is it? Right here. This bolt actually has been sitting here since we've had the car. I know where it goes, but out of humor factor, I left it there. All right, it has been there the whole time, over rough terrain, everything else. Now, if these shops were right, this bolt would not have stayed up there. There's plenty of area for it to fall out. This hood is not going to trap it there. It's not going to happen. So this bolt has remained pretty much right in this very spot for over a year on a suspension that shops in our area said that her suspension was shot. Okay, so that just proves my point that you can't always trust auto parts shops, auto mechanic shops. You can't always trust them. They will lie to you. They'll try to rip you off, and we have proven that with this car right here. Okay, she's 43 years old, and I mean, she does squeak a little bit, but put about 5 years on any vehicle, they'll still squeak. Let's go to the inside. Okay, pretty much you can tell that we practically live out of Project Spirit some days. She's she's well loved, and she does an amazing job. I drive her every day. There was a couple of days I didn't drive her, but there's actually a humor factor in there. She, because everyone knows now that I work at McDonald's over on Karsh, a lot of people have seen Project Vera, and they're so used to seeing a Maverick there, they didn't even notice the Maverick was a different color. Just kind of humorous. All right, the first thing that I'm going to point out is she is a manual. You'll actually see the clutch pedal down here. She is a manual. She's a 3-speed manual. And initially, when we got her, her gear shift was right here. She used to be what we called the 3 on the tree. Now, the linkage that runs down inside the steering column that controls the 3-speed manual on the column, the 3 on the tree, actually broke on us. And we have a video where we went over to a Hurst shifter on the floor. Thank you again, Jegs. This thing does an amazing job. All right. And what we did from here, and normally she has a boot right there, but we're actually getting ready to do a custom boot for her. I say we, it's going to be Princess Faye doing most of it. Basically, this is a Hurst shifter. This thing runs down through the floor. We cut the hole for the floor, and there's a bracket that mounts the shifter to the transmission. Then, from there, there's actual linkage that runs alongside the transmission, connecting it, and that allows me to shift the gears. This is an external linkage, okay? So, for those of you who have the newer transmissions and you hear constantly, don't rest your hand on the gear shifter because you'll wear out that shifting fork inside the transmission. I don't have to worry about that because there is no shifting fork. There's no internal linkage to her. It's all external, so I can rest my hand here all day long. Project Spirit does not care. There is one downfall right now. The 3-speed manual here, she has synchronizers just like every other transmission out there. Unfortunately, the synchronizer for first gear is wearing out, so I have to actually start her off in second gear. And if I can get my wife to pan in second gear, she pulls this hill just fine. That just goes to show that Ford got it right with the inline sixes. All right. Again, you will see a full bench seat. This is wonderful, okay? Princess Faye can scoot over towards me and sit next to me if she don't mind me, you know, going through the gears and everything. But basically, she can sit next to me, and I can put my arm around her, and that's great if I had an automatic, but I got a manual. And just one of them things, you know. You'll see various parts that have been changed around. Normally, there's a collar that sits up in here, and Spirit does have one major downfall right now. Typical, you know, there's going to be bugs in every vehicle. No matter what you do, no matter what you say, there's always going to be a bug in a vehicle over time. Well, this rod that runs right here connects into the ignition box. Well, it's a little worn. So when you turn it, go to turn her off, you'll see the alternator light kick on, and yes, that still works. Basically saying that it's not all the way off. So you have to reach down here and kind of give that a little bump. Kills the power. If you don't, you'll kill the battery. So just the way it is. Nothing we can do about it. Just how it is. Okay. Eventually we will fix that, but for right now it's okay. Now, you'll note right away that over here as well, there is no controls for air conditioning. She didn't come with air conditioning. She doesn't need it. Okay? I do have something that's really cool. Right down here, I can actually pull this lever open, and it will open vents to the outside. So as I'm cruising down the highway, I'm still getting cool air coming in through the car. Kind of like air conditioning. Even on a humid day, it's still really nice. Without the air conditioning, I run less weight, and she's better on fuel economy all around, and that's also a big improvement in performance. Just simple, easy to work on. So really a nice little feature. This is for her emergency brake. Unfortunately, like a lot of cars that have age, it doesn't work. Just the way it is. One of the other great features that I love about Project Spirit is the fact that she has manual windows. This crank does all the controlling for me. This is great because I don't have to worry about big bulky motors wearing out and spending huge amounts of dollars. The linkage is very easy to replace if it ever goes bad. It's just on a very good setup like this, I mean, I can actually roll her window up and down twice before you get your power windows up once and back down. It used to be something like 4 times, but hey, I'm getting old. All right, just the way it is. All right, now for those of you who've never seen this sort of thing, when you get a car like this, one of the first things I'm going to tell all of you, come right over here, and you'll actually see this little sheet. Okay, all the manufacturers have to do this, and if you look, that's actually the month and the year she was built. So there's the date, 11/74. She was built in November of 1974. But even though she's listed as a 75 Ford Maverick. Right here, this is your overall weight. Okay, so Spirit weighs in at 4,229 pounds. She's a very heavy economy car from back then. And believe it or not, Project Spirit is listed as an economy car. If you, basically, if you look long enough, you'll actually find the size of the tires. All that stuff will be printed all over these cars. And we know that Project Spirit also came out with 14-inch tires and wheels. She is running 15s, which does become a problem because basically with the 15-inch tires and wheels, it throws the speedometer off. It's not calibrated for 15s, it's calibrated for 14s. So when it throws the speedometer off, I can tell you at 55 miles an hour, I'm actually doing 60. When I get to 65, I'm actually doing 75. So I actually have to watch that. So even though I'm at top speed, it might say 90, but we know I'm going a heck of a lot faster than that. And her speedometer will read out all the way to 120. And I can tell you, without getting into too much detail, she will do that plus. All right? And that's even just with her 3-speed manual. Not half bad. Okay, another little feature that they were doing in the 1970s, and you don't see this very often, right here. This is a locking gas cap. Now, siphoning gas has always been an issue, and in later years we actually see where car manufacturers will put a screen in, they'll put different types of locks on it. Well, this was Ford's answer, and a lot of car manufacturers' answer to people trying to steal gas. Now, this can be jimmied off, but it is difficult, and we have had a couple of times where people have managed to get it off of there. Eventually we will put a camera on there, but basically you'll take and turn that and it pops right out. Put it back on, locks into place, but you know, not bad. Basically solid steel construction. You have solid steel chrome bumpers. I wish car manufacturers still did this, okay? They don't. And the reason why they don't, they're building you death traps. They want to kill you. Anyhow, right here, you'll note the tail lights, great shape still, but there's another little something going on that most people don't know about. These tail lights will actually match the Ford Pinto as well. Car manufacturers did that a lot back then. So these are actually pretty much the same as you would see on a Ford Tempo. Pretty cool. All right. Pretty much on around, it's basically the same. There's your Maverick logo. There's a big story on this right here. The horn, you know, the cow horns. Back in the 1940s, there was a guy named Samuel Maverick who refused to brand his cattle, and that's how we got this term Maverick, and that's where that comes from. He refused to brand his cattle, and I believe he lived in Texas. So there we have that. Cars today have dinky little antennas, and they're usually mounted somewhere weird on the car. Anyhow, this is how we did it back then. Now this will still work on HD stuff. You just got to get the HD radios. We haven't gotten that far. She's a work in progress. Now, another little something, and my friend the Cadillac Kid, he pointed this out when he had his old Camaro, which he told me a very sad story about all that. Basically, you will note there is no mirror on this side. Now, a lot of people don't realize this. Cars back then didn't need it. Okay? All we cared about was what was going on from the back to that side of the car. Who cared what was going on over here? Most of the time, you didn't see the dual lane highways like we see today, so we didn't need them. That's just the way it was. Now today, because people drive the way they do, they need the extra mirror, just the way it is. Well, that's pretty much it. I mean, Project Spirit, I mean, she's not in perfect condition, but she still gets the job done. She does an amazing job. Now, I will show you all something really interesting before we get to the end of the video. I know it's a long video, but well worth the walk around. For the most part, Project Spirit was, you know, all of her parts and the building of her was done right here in the United States. Except for, I have been told, a couple of parts. And I've only found one of them, and this is it right here. This little chrome strip, you'll see right there, made in Canada. So, as close to US as you can get without actually, you know, and it's still outside of the US. The only part that I have found on Project Spirit that was made in a foreign country. So this car, for the most part, 100% grade A American classic. I say that, but she's actually an antique. 43 years old, so she does a great job.
Well, of all the dang things. Memory card's full, but that's okay. That's okay. These things happen. Pretty much we were at the end of the video anyways. As always, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you've got a project, get out there and work on it. And as always, if nobody has told any of you that they love you today, Prince Magnum does. God bless you, and have a happy 24. Thank you.
Good night, ladies.